Hello, everyone. I've always believed that art is a form of communication that should be accessible to all. So I started my career as a community artist in the Gorbals, then became a founding director of Glasgow Sculpture Studios in 1988 and decided to start working in stone to be able to make more durable public sculpture. I met Japanese sculptor Hironori Katagiri, known to friends as Kata, at the Scottish Sculpture Workshop in 1987. He invited me to Japan in the winter of '88 to work in Okiriyama Quarry, where the basalt boulders have a distinctive rusty skin. Working conditions were basic, yet the quarry owner, Yamada-san, offered me as many generous offcuts as I wanted. Over the next 2 years, I learned stonecraft from very patient, generous, and open sculptors all over Japan. Most intensely as assistant artist on Park Hill's Tawara Sculpture Symposium, organized by Takeshi Tanabe in 1990, a £1 million project to make landscape features for Kansai Science City, a government initiative to boost Japan's research capability. Over 20 sculptors worked for 3 months with the 6,000 tons of granite boulders that had been excavated during building. Professor Tetsuzo Yamamoto asked me to design the relief for his 3-meter-high wall. Just one of 6 installations making up a sculpted environment which won the prestigious Landscape Formation Japan Grand Prix for Urban Landscape. The need to find sustainable balance in our relationship with nature has always been an important theme in my work. Journey to the Sea expresses the water cycle, rain falling, finding its way through mountains to the sea, and my own desire to find my way in a new material, language, and culture. The lunar cycle's effect on the tides is key to life in the port city of Hamamatsu. Kata and I collaborated for Watch the Moon Come Down, which reads above the busy traffic, calming its movement and creating a rest stop with 2 curved benches. In 1991, Kata and I got married and bought a derelict 4-acre field in Iwate, northeast Japan, to set up Ukishima Sculpture Studio as a base to work on public sculpture. I wanted to highlight the awe-inspiring seascape surrounding Moon Echo. 5 granite sculptures like remnants of a fossil seabed formed by the tides. Mutual respect and understanding between different cultures is vital to our bicultural family, with 2 Japanese-British children. My Relative Perception series groups forms cut from one block to encourage people to move around and see the changing perspectives they frame from different points of view. For 12 years now, I've been making the trophies for the British Chamber of Commerce and Japan's annual British Business Awards, encouraging environmental and social responsibility, innovation, and diversity. I make a new design every year, so nominees strive to win more than once. Mike Barrett, director of the British Council, suggested I make a monument for the UK 98 Festival of British Culture in Japan. Waves of Affinity in the British Embassy celebrates the strong relationship between our 2 maritime island nations. The sculpted islands, symbolizing air, earth, and water, emerge where the ripples of paving connect, a meeting space to make this overflow entrance to reception rooms more inviting. While working on this, I was disappointed to hear that of hundreds of events planned for UK 98, none involved living Scottish artists or Iwate. So determined to do something, Kata and I set up the Iwate Art Festival Executive Committee in Japan and enlisted my mother, Anne Turner-Thompson, to set up a support committee in Scotland. The Iwate Art Festival UK 98 was, we think, the largest, most comprehensive show of contemporary Scottish art outside Scotland to date, and was a huge success, made possible thanks to the support of so many people in Japan and Scotland. Professor Henry Walton wrote to me from Edinburgh, "The catalogue is amazing, a treasure trove, bringing together riches of information not gathered together remotely anywhere else I know of. Quite apart from the achievement it commemorates, it will be a source book that will always stand as a landmark." Copies of the 191-page catalogue are held at the National Museum of Scotland, the Royal Scottish Academy, 37 libraries, and across Scotland and Japan. Hosted by all three museums and most galleries in Iwate, plus Koiwai Farm, a dairy estate open to the public, 8 exhibitions showed 243 artworks by 85 artists from Scotland, 30 works by artists in Japan, plus 15 new works made in Iwate during residencies, complemented by 7 lectures and 2 workshops. More than 76,000 people visited the Iwate Art Festival UK 98. By introducing the Scottish workshops, art schools and studios, we hope to sow seeds for future exchanges, and the National Museum of Scotland took 3 of the exhibitions as part of their Japanese festival in April 1999. Jackie Parry made new work on residency with papermaker Suzuki Sensei. Jake Harvey had 4 pieces cast into Nambuteki ironware at a local foundry, helped by specialist Hirose Makoto. David Moore made ambitious installation work for his exhibition. Hisashi Momose, Masafumi Maita, Keith Rand, and John Hunter all made site-specific work to be shown for a year in land art in Koiwai. Keith Rand gave new life to a fallen tree. Original form became so beloved it is now being restored for permanent display. Living in Iwate's natural environment has influenced my work. I became fascinated by the colours of natural light on the snow every winter and started working in marble. After growing up under soft, diffuse Scottish light, the light in Japan seems to have sharper contrast with stronger ultraviolet and changing colour. Book of Light contains colour kinetic LED light slowly cross-fading through the spectrum. For 4 seasons, I set the light inside the marble to cross-fade slowly from white to blue as winter, slightly faster from yellow to green spring, dancing through the full spectrum summer, and slowly from yellow to red autumn. To amplify the sense of natural light at the entrance to Nango Library in Aomori, Kata and I created marble pages casting graphic shadows, articulating diurnal and seasonal cycles. The vortex seen through 7 journeys symbolizes the fresh, enriching perspective books provide. I've enjoyed many enriching experiences working with Japanese artists, architects, and communities, like when the Kokkaido Hall was condemned for demolition and we joined a group of local architects to help save it by showing how it could be used. For the first Kokkaido Art Show in August 2005, we asked 7 other Iwate artists to experiment with a room each to enhance the architect's exhibit on the history of the building. Takeshi Honda created houses made of rice, a former currency, as symbols of community. Minako Ishikawa fixed transcripts of old newspaper articles about the building on a checkerboard structure traversing the space. Okada filled the space with bamboo architecture, and I invited 4 young architecture students to collaborate with me on a maze of frames covered with international newspaper cuttings to reframe the history of the space. Kata used the room where the Emperor Hirohito stayed in 1928 for a sound installation, Embracing Defeat, evoking the international impact of Hirohito's surrender speech, with Cambodian, Chinese, Korean, Malaysian, Indonesian, and English translations reverberating around a recording of the original Japanese radio broadcast, particularly relevant on the 60th anniversary of the end of the war on the 15th of August. 5 cafes provided relaxed venues for conversations between artists and the public, showing that art is not a packaged answer, but a catalyst for open debate on historical, social, and cultural issues raised by the artworks and the site. In the theatre space, we held an art auction and live music, dance, and video performances, which helped attract over 5,000 visitors, many of whom confessed to never being interested in contemporary art before. One pensioner told me, "Contemporary art is usually difficult to understand, but when I saw the dancing and heard the music, I realized it was just like that. A lot of fun making something new from the history of all that has gone before." After the second Kokkaido Art Show in 2007, many people wanted it to become a regular fixture, but the Kokkaido Hall had become so popular it was booked up. We had achieved what we set out to do. The building was safe, and it was time to move on. In February 2010, we held the final Kokkaido Art Show Plus, adding a second venue so we had enough space for 12 Japanese artists and 3 international guests. The Kenreite building had recently become a potential venue. While we were working inland in Iwate on 11th of March 2011, the ground started shaking more and more violently until I felt the Earth's crust would crack, followed by the tsunami and nuclear disaster. Power lines and phone connections were down and roads closed. Even when power came back, we could not contact family and friends on the coast, yet received scores of emails with heartening messages of support from abroad. The people who needed this moral support more were not receiving these kind of messages. Despite personal and infrastructure losses of their own, Japan Post was quickly up and running again, and our first news from the coast arrived by postcard. This inspired me to ask artists to send postcards to Japan with visual messages of support. We received over 500 beautiful postcards from all over the world, but how to show them all? I had the brainwave to use fishing net with colourful threads, all symbolic as well as solving the practical problem. The net married all the cards together in one art installation, easily adapted for any space as it toured the stricken coast of Tohoku, from the huge hall in Fukushima Museum of Art to pop-up community centres, shopping malls, and fittingly, post offices. People truly appreciated the tangible care and attention of each intimate card. St. John's Church asked for some for their Festival of Spirituality and Peace during the 2011 Edinburgh Festival. It seemed wrong to divert them from the people of Tohoku. So we asked Tohoku artists if they could send reply postcards from Japan. Many of them had been directly hit by the tsunami and the aftermath. Video artist Yoshitomo Saito responded, "Are you nuts? I've lost everything, all my video equipment, everything." An hour later, he phoned back saying, "I have not lost what matters. I still have my wife and children." And he made this beautiful image of his baby holding his hand, building up hope. For all 22 of us, it was our first attempt to make artwork since the disaster. Several artists worked with tsunami debris. Megumi Honda used shells washed into her parents' house. Several contemplated the environmental impact. Watanabe expressed concerns over radiation, and I the need to look after the earth and each other. Others, like Kata, expressed the deep void of loss. After being shown at St. John's in Edinburgh, they started a world tour. At Icon Gallery, Kata and I gave a talk and held workshops to make more postcards to send to Japan. The tour continued to the Japan Foundation in Köln and Budapest and the universities of Stirling and Aberdeen. Kata and I also produced Tohoku Scotland, and with larger work by the Tohoku artists alongside 12 of the Scottish artists who had taken part in the Iwate Art Festival UK 98, 13 years earlier. Thanks to David Moore and Professor Chris Breward, this was shown in the Sculpture Court at Edinburgh College of Art in October 2011. Over the last 10 years, Postcards to Japan has continued touring the coast of Tohoku, and both projects were included in the Family Portrait 10th Spring exhibition we produced last year to support the ongoing recovery. This memorial exhibition was life-affirming, too rich and emotional to cover today. Hori Eye Clinic was the first building in Kamaishi to be rebuilt after the tsunami. In Japan, the days are also named after the planets that influence our lives. I made 7 days to encourage people that despite its devastating power, nature usually gives us all we need to live. The Japanese week starts with Sunday, Thursday is Plant Day, and Saturday is Earth. The tactile marble surface soothes the visually impaired patients who feel comforted touching them. I also designed a steel gate describing the golden proportions used in the relief as a key for rebuilding. Living in Japan, I became more acutely aware of my own culture, seeing it from a distance. Fascinated by the similarity of key patterns in Japanese and Ainu art to Celtic art, implying they are a common human response to delicate natural balance. In my ongoing Celtic Keys series, I explore this idea in 3 dimensions. These are connected to my entrance to the Maze series, exploring links between different cultures, from the ancient Greeks to contemporary multicultural visual literacy, searching for essential forms that express constants in nature and humanity. I developed these ideas for several public sites in Japan and Scotland, including 2 play sculptures set on a pedestrian street in the port city of Yokohama, where Kata complemented my pieces with 2 wave ships expressing life on the ocean. Japan was a perfect place to learn how to work stone. UK art schools offer very little technical training, focusing on conceptualization. Many artists now commission craftsmen to realize their ideas for them. The results are sometimes lifeless or empty. I prefer to work myself directly with the material, as this often reveals new depths, directions, and possibilities. For Otemachi Financial City, the central piece of 5 sculptures marks the building entrance, acting as a bridge between human and architectural scale. Surrounding wave and cave forms animate the city street and imply continuous connection hidden under the surface. The Western fashion for flashy one-liners are briefly entertaining and are becoming more popular in Japan, but I believe public art needs to sustain interest if people are going to be living and engaging with it daily over years, lifetimes, or even generations. I want to create theatre sets for life where people can meet, play, and connect with each other and their social, natural, and built environment, and encourage play so that more complex layers of meaning will be understood over time as children grow up within their environment. I won the competition for Oatland Square in the Gorbals, where I had been a community artist 30 years before. I was delighted to revisit the multicultural community that inspired me to make public sculpture. The pedestrian crossroad site connects a beautiful meander on the River Clyde and Richmond Park with the new housing. So the granite stone sculptures and paving translates 2-dimensional interlinking meandering patterns into 3-dimensional form and space to create a welcoming sense of place, a crucible for local stories and memories for generations to come. River Spirit was used as a performance space by the local children's choir and as the hub for community events. Back in Japan, my Aphrodite became symbolic to me of the desire for recovery after 2011. So I made a 3-meter high version for the entrance to Kumakengo's new tower in Tokyo Midtown. Ever since I arrived in Japan, I have loved the flowing lines of Japanese calligraphy and appreciate the animism of the Japanese Shinto idea that each stone embodies an individual spirit, and know that these have had an impact on my aesthetic sense and philosophy for sculpture. I also made 3 graces, which were set like non-denominational votive images, leading the way along the path from Aphrodite to the city centre. Cloud9 is a Möbius infinity loop I've been revisiting during the pandemic to think of ways of reconnecting people. Is time linear or a fluid connection of past, present, and future? I'm not a scientist, so approach it intuitively. My life in Japan has been a wonderful roller coaster ride. Japanese language is still challenging for me, so I try to make work that speaks for itself. I am grateful for my life and community in Japan, which have enabled me to develop practical craft and communication skills, so I now feel confident to truly explore and develop my ideas. Thank you.